fucking warm. Hello, welcome back to the Coleman channel, and welcome back to another installment of the Tube Review, where we review films, shows, creative media type beat things. And today's review, we're doing another horror film. Wow, who would have thought it? Can you tell it's my favourite? Yes. We're going to be doing a review of a film that's titled, quite simply, Skinamarink. Skinamarink. All one word. I don't really know what it means. It means something though, apparently. I looked it up. Yeah. Look up for yourself. I'm not here to explain it to you. This is taking too long. Yes. Skinamarink. You ever heard of Skinamarink? Skinamarink. We're going to be doing a review of it. This is going to be a very interesting review because if you're not familiar with Skinamarink at all, it is a fucking weird kind of I guess it's almost like it's a full length film. Man, God, it's crazy. The time does not exist when you watch Skinamarink. It's like an hour and 40 minutes long, and somehow it still managed to be a very compact, bite-sized film for various reasons of which we'll get into. But man, it's just it's a very, very bizarre. It's what I guess people are calling it an experimental horror film, and yeah, I can kind of see what they mean by that. I don't know if I'd use the word experimental per se. It kind of feels like a modern age kind of David Lynch kind of film, except it's kind of got a bit of a plot throughout it. It doesn't like it doesn't like grab your hand and like here's the plot and puts it right out in front of you. It's very fucking bizarre. It's a very strange film. It was directed and written by a guy called Kyle Edward Ball. And if you've never heard of the name before, neither have I. But apparently he's one of these dudes who make like really freaky kind of analog horror stuff on like YouTube. You know, this is a big scene that's going on right now. It's like the whole, which is kind of like this whole, it's kind of like it's a really big movement right now in like, I guess online content creation space. So people have these really crazy experimental ideas for horror and stuff. Analog horror is a really big thing. It's like a lot of liminal space kind of stuff, a lot of like kind of weird, almost found footage caught on camera kind of filters and just really eerie vibes. It's not like in your face spooky horror, but it's like just a very unsettling, freakish, bizarre sensation you get while watching it. If you're familiar with The Backrooms, this is pretty much exactly what I'm talking about. The Backrooms is like probably the biggest example of analog horror online right now, and Kyle Edward Ball is of that background, and this is one of the most biggest things I can say about Skinamarink getting made. I think it's really, really cool that these analog horror dudes who are ordinarily just constricted to making content on YouTube have now been given the space and the opportunity to make their really fucking weird kind of new wave horror scene onto feature length, you know what I mean? I think The Backrooms is supposed to be getting something like that. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that, but I think I've heard that before. And it makes sense because it's a big scene, you know, a lot of people dig it, a lot of people are with it, a lot of people are, even for like The Backrooms, were like expanding the lore and stuff like that. I'm not overtly familiar with that kind of thing, but it just goes to show that because analog horror has so much going for it and it's so broad in terms of what you can do, I think it's really cool that these people are being given the opportunity to make films like this. And Skinamarink, oh god, is no exception to the rule. So Skinamarink, if you've never heard of it, I never heard of it either until I saw a trailer for it on YouTube, and it is a fucking amazing trailer because it literally tells you nothing about the film, yet it tells you everything about the film. That's the kind of movie we're talking about here. Go and watch the trailer. It's fucking bizarre, and it pretty much sums up the entire film. Like, if you don't like the trailer, you won't like the film, is basically what I'm saying to you. If you like the trailer, you'll love the film. So yeah, that's very cool, very, very, very cool that these kind of creators are getting the opportunity to make these kind of films. It's available on Shudder right now. If you don't know what Shudder is, it's basically a streaming service exclusively for like horror, and Shudder do a lot of their own original stuff there too, like Netflix, and that's what Skinamarink is. So yeah, check it out on there, if you will. And yeah, this film had like a baby budget as well, crowd-funded budget of like $15,000, which is like less than Fred's, the film we talked about last time, which is like £400,000 or something like that. So yeah, it's pretty nutty how kind of raw, lo-fi the filming of it is. Like, it's all filmed digitally on a digital camcorder and stuff. It's all filmed digitally on like a digital camcorder and all this shit. It's really cool. The production of it is really neat. But what do I think of it? That's the question. Well, spoiler-free review. I thought it was pretty cool. I really liked it a lot, actually. I don't think it was like blow your nuts off fucking crazy amazing or anything like that. Because like, at the end of the day, I pretty much feel films like this, like really experimental films that kind of go against the grain, this kind of David Lynchian, bizarre, just fucking off-kilter, unsettling kind of film. Something like Eraserhead or something like that. You know, I love Eraserhead a lot. It's a really great film, but I would say it's also not like blow your nuts off amazing. It just kind of is what it is. It's in its own lane of existence. Do you know what I mean? You can't really compare a film like Eraserhead to a regular like blockbuster film with like plot and character and narrative and all these other things that come into it. It's much more of an experimental kind of thing in terms of like the filmography and what's presented to you on the screen and all that kind of stuff. Skinamarink pretty much falls within the purview of that kind of thing. But for what it is, as an idea, as a concept, and an execution, I think it's really fucking cool. I think analogue horror has definitely got something going for it. I'd really like to see where it goes in the future, and I think Skinamarink is a prime example of what you can do with analogue horror as a feature-length film. And with not much going into it to make it, you know? You don't need a massive fuck-off budget or anything like that to make films like this. You don't need, like, state-of-the-art technology and stuff. Like, this film was filmed in Pale Edward Ball's childhood home, digital camcorder, all this kind of stuff. It all just comes down to the concept and the manner of execution. And I think Skinamarink did a fucking rad job in making this concept come to fruition. And yeah, it's just nailed. The whole thing is very much just nailed, pretty much rad, perfect, sick. You know what I mean? It's a deeply unsettling film. It's a fucking skin-crawling, freaky-ass film to watch, especially because you don't really know exactly what's going on half the time. You just kind of have an inkling of what's going on. Like I say, there is a plot to Skinamarink, but it's not in your face. It doesn't tell you outwardly. There's no exposition or anything like that. It's just things happening in dialogue. Very little dialogue, and yeah, you just kind of get an idea of what's happening at all times, pretty much, is the big thing about it. Also, one particular thing about Skinamarink that I think a lot of people really like about it is the fact that it kind of draws off of a lot of personal experience for a lot of people. Like, the whole idea of the film is kind of preying on this idea of like these really freakish nighttime moments that you have as a kid, you know what I mean, where like things just go bump in the night and your brain plays tricks on you and you see ghouls and ghosts, and you know, you run upstairs as fast as you can in case the ghoul man comes to get you. This is like personal experience that everyone fucking has as a child, and Skinamarink very much preys on this concept, this weird nighttime childhood phenomena where everything's fucking horrifying and it's like there's a malignant presence in the house. It's exactly what Skinamarink is. Not to go too deep into that, but it's exactly what Skinamarink is, and it's such a nailed, perfect idea that I think knocks on the head. Did I like completely relate with it? I was like, damn, that's like if I was there as like a 6-year-old. No, but you know, I definitely got the vibe and I got the feeling, and it was reminding me of those kind of nighttime moments that used to occur when you're on your own and it feels like your mum and dad are even there. Do you know what I mean? And they're maybe in the next room, but you know, you daren't go in there or whatever because they're sleeping, or there's like a fucking creepy presence in the house coming to get you. It's very cool. It's very cool, and it definitely captures the imagination of that whole idea very, very succinctly. Particularly just how the camera angles work and just the grainy footage and this weird, like, murky, milky camera quality that appears. These really fucking bizarre camera angles. It's never just a straight angle. Everything's always in the corner of a room, pointing towards the floor at an angle, like just barely covering. You barely see faces throughout the whole film. It's just these really bizarre, weird camera angles that are present for the entire feature. Yeah, it's just, oh man, it's weird. It's just a very strange, palpable experience that you get while watching it. Is it outright terrifying? No. I've reviewed Fred's on this fucking channel, for God's sake. Nothing's ever going to touch that film, but that's because that film kind of touches on real things. And, you know, to an extent, Skinamarink kind of does when I'm touching on the idea of childhood freakishness and stuff like that, but, you know, I guess in our heads we all know that's not a real thing. But I guess it's just that the film captures the essence of that very, 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 very well. But yeah, it isn't like fucking shit your fucking frillies terrifying. Shit your frillies? What the fuck does that mean? It's not fucking outwardly terrifying, but it's a very palpable experience you get while watching it, and it is freakish, and it's eerie, and it's that analog horror liminal space sensation that you get while watching stuff. It's very off-putting and just jarring is essentially what it is, and it does ramp up very, very suddenly as the film goes on, as we learn more about the plot. And one other thing I'll touch on in terms of spoiler-free is that Skinamarink explores cosmic horror very, 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 very well. What do I mean? Well, what's the first thing that you think of when you think of cosmic horror? Because I think for a lot of people, they immediately think of Cthulhu and like cyclopean beings and H.P. Lovecraft kind of unnameable horrors that your mind can't possibly comprehend, or you'll go fucking crazy. But I think at its core, the whole idea of cosmic horror as well is this idea of like there exists omnipotent, unknowable, unexplainable, impossible like beings, presences, stuff like that can basically just fuck with just like mortal beings for seemingly no purpose, reason, or want or desire that we can possibly imagine, and it just causes unimaginable suffering with its infinite power because it can, and there's literally nothing that you can do to tackle it or stop it. That's very cosmic horror, and Skinamarink tackles that very, very well. I think as the word cosmic is in cosmic horror, you immediately think of like extraterrestrial, like deity beings, omnipotent god like Galactus, fucking Shub-Niggurath beings or something. But I think in a grand sense, it's just more like impossible, unnameable, omnipotent forces that we as mortal men and women cannot fucking comprehend or stop. And Skinamarink does that very, very, very well, and that's the hardest part of the whole film to stomach, I think, because if you don't know, and this is spoiler free because they're just the characters, the main focus of this film is two kids, and when I say kids, I mean like kids. I think the age range is like 7 and 4, and these kids are the subject of this cosmic presence, this omnipotent presence that is suggested that throughout the film. Yeah, it's rough, man. It's pretty rough to witness the happenings, the ruination, if you will. And yeah, that's my spoiler-free review of Skinamarink. I think that honestly would sum up everything you need to know, because like I said, I don't know how much I can even say about Skinamarink in terms of like plot and stuff like that. There really isn't much. Like I said, there is a plot, but it's barely there. Like it's like just is there, but it's not. Again, I keep saying it's not in your face. It's not driven. It's just there. And basically, it's almost like just being a fly on the wall kind of situation. Almost like because the camera angles are always in corners and angles and facing the floor and up against the ceiling and stuff. We just hear the conversations, and it's always the dialogue is so eerie, bro, because there's never any like outwardly talking. It's always like whispering and stuff, and like you're just hearing it from the other room and all this kind of shit. And they basically show us what's going on, or tell us what's going on. Even we get shown what's going on when the fucking house, the walls and the doors and the ceilings start disappearing and moving around the house. Yeah, that's fucking freakish. So yeah, it doesn't even suggest to you what's going on. So yeah, like even when you see plot events happening, like the windows disappearing and the doors disappearing, you still don't really know what's going on. There's a point at the beginning of the film where I think the 6-year-old has a bump, like falls down the stairs and like has a little head injury and it's sore and stuff, and it can almost lead you to believe it's like a nightmare happening. of all this stuff occurring, but then I guess it slowly makes you realise that it's not at all. It's just a very weird, like, you're gonna have to piece it together and come to your own conclusion, even though it is a solid plot. Like, there's no, like, differing as, like, there's no, I don't know, theorising as to what could happen. Like, there's no, like, I think this happened kind of thing, I suppose. It's like, there is a plot there, it's a solid plot, and like, that's the canon, if you will. But I guess you can be left to your own devices as to why it's all happening. I don't know, like, it kind of leaves you to make your own conclusions, but at the same time, there is actually a solid plot there that's going on and events are happening. Does that make any sense? I hope so. That's kind of what I gleaned from the film when I watched it anyway. But yeah, it's just incredibly horrifying where you see these two, this like brother and sister, and the parents obviously disappear, and they're just alone in this house, this fucking changing house that they don't even like have a means to explain it. Like, it's such a weird thing. Like, they're not like outwardly fucking panicking or screaming or anything like that. I don't know what it is. I think it's because the whole idea is like these childhood weird nightmare scenarios that happen in the night time, because it's all happening in your house. Your house is obviously can be considered to be like the safe zone as a kid. Do you know what I mean? Like the safe haven where nothing bad could possibly happen. And when all this stuff's happening, like the kids go down in the living room and like bunker up essentially and just like watch cartoons and play with toys and try and keep their minds off of the unexplainable shit that's happening, and they're dealing with it as best as they can. And you get that vibe is like, yeah, what happens when doors and fucking windows start disappearing and go in a living room where it's safe and hide and bunker up and try and keep calm and stuff like that in your house where it should be safe, right? It's just very, oh man, it's just so uncomfortable to watch this unfold with these kids, especially as it starts getting worse and worse and it starts happening in the living room where they think they're safe. Like chairs and stuff appear on the ceiling and stuff like that. We get some POV shots for the kids and it's like a found footage kind of camera thing, this back rooms kind of thing that I mentioned earlier where we're witnessing all this happen. It's just really weird. Like there's no music in it for that either obviously, so we're just witnessing all this happen with like this film grain kind of sound happening and the whispering of the kids and the echoing of the TV as they're watching like really old like black and white cartoons and stuff like that, and the sound of toys being played with. And we're just witnessing all this kind of stuff happening, especially when the malignant presence starts to make itself known. It speaks throughout the film, and it's got this fucking horrifying like whispering voice. It like has subtitles on the film. That one's a bit weird. I don't know, there's a few subtitle things that happen throughout the film, like almost like a documentary. It almost does kind of feel like it's there because it's hard to make out what the presence is saying. Maybe they shouldn't have the subtitles there. Maybe, you know, it's a stylistic choice. Maybe they think it needs to be there to help. But like, you know, if the idea is that this voice is supposed to be kind of hard to understand and incomprehensible, maybe it would have a bit more of a guttural, visceral sensation upon the viewer if they didn't get a helping hand in understanding what he's saying. It's got like, you have to really fucking listen out. It doesn't speak very often. It just speaks occasionally. And it just baits these kids into even more horrifying things happening, like baiting the daughter into coming into the mum and dad's room and they're there but they're not them kind of thing. They're facing away from the camera. There is a few of these kind of like tropey horror moments that happen, but because this is like an analog horror thing, there's never a lot of moments where it's like building up to a jump scare. In a lot of ways they just kind of build up to nothing, but that's kind of the point. It's like, it's the visceral, palpable feeling of dread, unnerving, like, what the fuck is gonna happen here? Hurry up so I can fucking like breathe. If it just keeps ramping up the tension and then it just lets you off very slow instead of go and then like you get a jump and then you calm down. It's more like it just stops and then it lulls you away kind of thing until it pulls you back in with another moment like this happening. And there are a few like little tropey jump scare moments here and there, like when the son goes to find the door in the basement, her face is all fucking fucked up and mangled and stuff like that, you know. Stuff like that's okay. Kind of like, you know, it's a bit creepypasta-esque, you know, the girl's face is all fucked up. You know, a lot of analog horror kind of comes from creepypastas as well, you know. say what you will about creepypastas, I feel like some of them have aged better than others, to say the least. But those tropes are very much still extant in a few instances, and they're here in Skinamarink as well. But yeah, it really drags it out, and it kind of makes you understand that the kids are in this house for a long time while this is happening, and they're basically trying to fend for themselves. Like, there's even a point where, almost at a kind of a weird humour moment, where the entity disappears the toilet and they replace it with a bucket, and they go ooh, which is like, that's kind of funny. But then you kind of realise, like, what's the most obvious thing? Well, we got piss and shit in a fucking bucket now. It's like, Jesus Christ, man, this is like what kids are having to do to fucking live and survive. Like, it's funny because they get the idea that these kids aren't dumb, and they know the basics of like what to do. Like, they try and phone the police and stuff, and nothing happens. I think they even pick up at some point, but it's like, we don't know where the house is, if it's still in the neighbourhood, or what the fuck's going on. None of that. All that's like keeping you guessing, and you have to come to your own conclusions there in terms of what is actually happening to the house itself. Oh boy, it's fucking freakish. And yeah, like I say, because there's not much of a pretty much the majority of the film is just very long shots of these very strange angles throughout the house where we overhear the conversations going on, and then oh bruh, like, the less I say about the conclusion of the film, I think the better, even though this is a spoilerific review. Like, dude, it just gets into some fucking raw shit, especially when the 4-year-old is like the last kid and the entity fucking picks on him pretty fucking horrifyingly. And then there's like a big jump where it's like 500 days later and the whole house is literally just a fucking infinite corridor with just toys and shit and this fucked up music of the cartoons and shit. It's like, bruh, like the entity's like had its fucking way and just gone fucking full throttle. This realm is mine kind of thing. I think one of the greatest parts of it, like the most iconic jump scare freak moment for everyone, is like the little Fisher Price phone, you know, the one from Toy Story 3, that dude who pops up. It's literally like just a dark shot and his eyes are just in the darkness, like glowing, and then flashlight and it's just the Fisher Price toy, and then it rings really loud and then cuts, and it's like, bruh. Obviously the whole idea is like I mentioned earlier, these childhood items considered like associated with like calm and happiness and stuff, like the toys and shit. It's almost like the entity's eyes are looking through the darkness and then becomes a Fisher Price toy to kind of symbolise that whole thing. Oh yes, there's a lot of fairies from a lot of people, kind of like fairy craft, and like I said, there's open to interpretation in this film as to why it's all happening. I mentioned the head injury from the 4-year-old. Some people think it's a coma. Some people think it's supposed to like symbolise parental domestic abuse and stuff. But I don't know. I think this I don't think it needs to be any of those particularly. I think it can just be what it is and what's happening. I think literally just the fact that that's happening instead of just symbolising something or it's all in someone's head. I think that's way more fucking terrifying than, no, this is actually just some entity that appeared out of fucking nowhere, no one knows how, why, or when, fucking with these two kids in this house, manipulating everything in the environment, being omniscient and omnipresent and stuff, and omnipotent. That's fucking terrifying. There are some people who don't like this film, but I think if they don't like it, then like there's nothing you can really do. Like, you can't if you don't get it, then you're not gonna get it, is essentially what I think. It's not for everyone. Again, it's emphasis on experimental horror. It's not a traditional fucking film of plot and stuff. Like, if you don't like Eraserhead, you're not. I keep comparing it to Lynch, but it's because it's that kind of vibe it comes with it. If you don't like a film like that, you're not gonna like Skinamarink. Do you know what I mean? It's not a film that lays it all out for you. If you don't get it, you're not gonna get it. Do you know what I mean? Just the way it is, baby. But that's the review of Skinamarink. God. Epic to lame ratio. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So, I think for Skinamarink, man, it's a tough one. Like I say, it's just it's in a completely different realm of its own. This kind of film. Do you know what I mean? I'm gonna put it in the ratio. I'm not gonna do a Fred's tier or something. It's not in that fucking vibe of a film. It can be rated lame or epic. I think I'm gonna put it in low tier, very epic. I think that's a good place for Skinamarink to go. I very much feel like Skinamarink's gonna be like a pioneering film for this wave of analog, liminal space kind of horror that's been done on the YouTube scape that's now being brought into feature-length films. I think it's definitely set a benchmark for what films like this can do. I think Kyle Edward Ball's got a very bright future ahead of him. I hope he can do some more films in the same vein as Skinamarink, but do some different stuff too. I think it's just an idea that it's a concept that got perfectly brought into fruition, and it's a very different experience. It's a very experimental vibe. It does some fucking things very right, and it's just great. It's a fucking great experience. It's fucking freakish. And it's bizarre, and it's a very inspiring film in the way it's been shot, in terms of the angles and the cinematography and just the vibe that it gives off, and it shows how much you can do to create such a fucking bizarre film with such a little budget in production. It's very, very impressive how they managed to make this happen, considering what they had to work with, you know what I mean? This is all crowdfunded and stuff like that. It's all started off from fucking YouTube videos. It's fucking cool. It's very, very cool. Yeah, there's not much else for me to say about it. Low tier, very epic. It's Skinamarink. It's not up any higher because, I don't know, I guess it is what it is for now, do you know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot else to pick from other than it's an experiment that was done very well, do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't blow my nuts off in terms of how insanely, it doesn't like break the mold. It's more like just a pioneering thing for this up and coming genre, I suppose, if that makes any sense. But it's not like fucking insane. It's not like the next best thing in horror yet. That's the point. It's not the best thing, not yet. I think there's more to come that could potentially surpass Skinamarink, but Skinamarink set a fucking bar, and I would love to see what else comes. If they do make a Backrooms film, let's see how fucking crazy that goes. I'm here for it. But that is my review of Skinamarink, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think. Watch the film, get it on Shudder. It's coming out on physical release at the end of this month, I think I saw, or maybe next month. Check out, watch the trailer, just share, did you like it, did you not like it, what did you think about it in the comments? I read all of them. Skinamarink, tube review.
In this house,